So this is Freud's psychoanalytic theory. He didn't come up with this theory all by himself, but he was a very charismatic writer, a good writer, and he was very charismatic. So he made all of these kind of ideas very popular. So let's see what they are. First off, as Freud said that there are three basic parts of the personality. He believed in evolution, and so he said that we were born with the id. The id is based on the pleasure principle. And he says that our primary motivations are sex and aggression. Like I said, he believed in evolution, and he said the species that has managed to survive over the passage of time had to have these two primary drives to help them dominate: the drive of sex and the drive of aggression. Sex so that we would reproduce, and aggression so that we would attempt to dominate. The id is the dominant part of the personality that we're born with, and it lasts until about 1. Then what happens is our ego develops. The ego is based on the reality principle. At around 1, as the child starts to mature, the child doesn't get away with everything that it wants. By the way, this theory is supposed to be a brain theory. So he's saying as the brain develops, these different parts of the personality come out due to the brain development, and also the way that parenting is going, they can help these different parts of the personality grow or shrink or not be as strong. So he says that if a parent gives in to all the child's wishes, then the ego will be kind of weak and the id will be kind of strong. He says, at around 1, this is the time period when the mother should start laying down the rules. And the ego tries to get the id what it wants. The id is still our driving force. There's this big question about, do we ever do anything for anyone else, or are we really doing everything for ourselves? For example, when we help someone else, are we helping someone else to really help them, or are we helping them so that we can feel good about ourselves? When we give money, again, are we giving money to others, or are we giving the money so that we can feel good about ourselves? That's the big debate for him. So the ego develops, and the ego gets the id what it wants in a socially acceptable way. And this is about from ages 1 to 3. So the child can probably no longer just scream, 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 cry, 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 and just demand every ounce of attention. But the child does quickly learn that if it comes up and hugs you or something like that, then you'll pick it up. But if the kid just won't stop crying, you finally get tired of it. So the child is starting to learn how to get what it wants in a socially acceptable manner, and that's when the ego is emerging. At about the age of 3, parents start demanding even more from the child, and another part of the brain is developing. And he says that this is the superego, which is your conscience and morals. So this is, let me go back. I meant to write down on this slide that this was from about ages 3 to 6. So Freud believed that the personality in a child was developed by about the age of 6, and it was developed through a sequence of stages that we're going to be going over in a short while. And these stages, the way the child goes through these stages, they develop the parts of the personality. And the reason why everybody has a different personality is because of the differences in the sizes of these different personality parts. So we have the id, we have the ego, and the superego. The superego develops between the ages of about 3 and 6. The way I like to do this analysis is to kind of show this Fred Flintstone. In each of us, we have, according to Freud, we have 3 parts of our personality. We have the id, which is kind of like the devil that's saying, go out and do everything that you want. Go and it's all about you. Focus on sex, focus on aggression. Just go out and get your needs filled. But then there's usually another side of us. A lot of us can identify with what I'm saying right now. That's our superego, which that's the side of us that's saying, oh no, you shouldn't do that. You must do what's right, so on and so forth. And then the Fred Flintstone, the part that's in between these two parts of the personality, would be the ego. And so what the ego does is the ego is trying to that a little bit more. Let's do this iceberg metaphor. So I'm going to try something a little bit different I haven't tried before. So we're going to see, as I wanted to try to draw this for you. So this is a pretty famous metaphor that a lot of psychology teachers use. I'm not going to say that Freud did it, but it's in a lot of textbooks and a lot of teachers use this. So if you see this part, this is like water. So this line that I drew right here is like water. And this would be your unconscious. Very hard to write with this kind of thing, but okay, so this is your unconscious. It's the under the water. Unconscious are things that you are not aware of. And then above the water would be your conscious. So consciousness is things that you are aware of. So unconscious are things that are going on in your brain that are kind of motivating you that you don't seem to be aware of, but they are having a powerful effect on you. Whereas conscious is you understand that they're going on. For example, Freud says that whenever we lose something, it's because our unconscious didn't want us to have it. Whenever we're late for something, it's because our unconscious doesn't really want to be there. He says that the way that we can look at the unconscious is we can look at it through Freudian slips. When people say things that they say that they didn't mean to say, but they did say them. For example, I might have given you an example before in a previous lecture of I used to be a cocktail waitress, and one time there was a very handsome man that walked in, and oh my gosh, I was so smitten with him. And I told all the other girls, I said, oh no, I'm going to go wait on him. So I walked up to him and I said, hi, what can I do to you? I mean, what can I do for you? And see, Freud would say, absolutely. When I said, what can I do to you, that was a Freudian slip, because that was what my id was saying. I'm not sure if I said this in the previous lecture when I told you a little bit about Freud, because to be honest with you guys, is I teach these lectures so many times in my face-to-face classes that I can't remember, did I teach it to my online class or did I teach it into my face-to-face class? But here's another example. I hope it's not repetitive. Let's see. I use the example of have you ever noticed that when you really like someone, you say stupid things? And I tell the example of one time I really liked this guy, and I was walking along with him, and I was so involved in trying to talk to him and impress him that I ran right smack into a pole. It was pretty embarrassing. But that's the kind of stupid stuff that we do when we really like them. So back to this other slide, what they would be saying is they're saying the id is saying, oh, tell them you want them, tell them you want them right now, and all the terrible things you could do with them. And then the superego part of you is saying, no, you have to play it cool, you have to play it cool, don't rush in too fast, just get to know them. And so you have this war going on inside of you, the id saying, go, 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 and the superego is saying, no, no, no. And so it tongue-ties you, and you can't remember, you don't say things as clearly, and you mess up things. That would be a war between kind of the unconscious and the conscious. Whereas when we don't really like somebody and we're not impressed with them, we just seem to come off so smoothly. So anyway, what does this have to do with the id, the ego, and superego? Well, this is a pretty interesting part. See, this is called the iceberg metaphor. So in the unconscious would be the id, okay? So the id is supposedly completely unconscious. So when I tell you that Freud says that you're run by sex and aggression, some of you might be saying, no, I'm not run by sex and aggression. That's not true. That's not what motivates me. Yeah, that's what Freud is saying. He's saying you're not aware of it, but yet you are. Why do you trip when you really, you see somebody that you think is really attractive, and then you trip right in front of them? Why? Because the id wants them to notice you. So the id makes you trip or fall or something because they want you to notice them. It's all very unconscious. So the id is completely unconscious. You don't really have conscious access to it. Now the ego, on the other hand, it's about halfway conscious and halfway unconscious. So we are aware of our ego that's kind of trying to balance between things. We understand the ego, but it's also somewhat unconscious. Now, to me, what the interesting one is the interesting one is the superego. Let me tell you why. So the superego is both conscious and unconscious, about half-half. And the reason why that's interesting to me is, uh, unfortunately, I have some bad news for you guys who don't like your parents' morals and conscience. Um, it's going to take a lot for you to totally divorce yourself from your parents' values. It looks like I spelled superego wrong here. Let me put this in. Superego. Um, because since the superego is unconscious, even if you consciously disagree with your parents' morals, since it has been ingrained in you in such an early age and it has lots of unconscious pathways in the brain, you may find yourself actually creating scenarios in order to align yourself with your parents' morals, even though consciously you disagree with them. For example, I've taught at many colleges in the area, and I've taught at Glendale College. And at Glendale College, I find that there's a different population than, let's say, West LA or Los Angeles City College or East LA. I'm sure you're aware of it, that each one of those campuses has a different population. So the population that I see at Glendale Community College is Armenian. Very heavy Armenian population there. And in the old school Armenian population, um, they like Armenians to date just Armenians. That's the old school. I'm not saying that's what's happening now. And so they want them to, they don't really support mixed race relationships. And so what I'd have is, from my students, what I'd have there that was different than any other school is I had a lot of anxiety from students dating outside of their race. Now I work at LA City College right now. That's my full-time job. And I don't see, it is extremely rare for anyone to ever come into my office with problems of mixed race relationship. Lots of relationship problems, but not because of the issue of an interracial couple. But at Glendale is very common. So consciously, the younger generation realizes, every race is beautiful and we shouldn't judge people just by the race. But they had their parents' teachings about, I want you to marry an Armenian, I want you to marry an Armenian, stuck in their unconscious. And so they found themselves constantly, it seemed like unconsciously setting up traps for people that they dated to fall into. Like they would fight with them more, they would find more flaws with them, so on and so forth. And it seemed like it was because the superego was quick to pounce and say, look at every flaw and say, see, I told you that you shouldn't be dating that type of person. See, look at all these negative things that are there. So whatever your parents have taught you with morals and your conscience, they may unfortunately be stuck there. I have another story about a student, and she told me this in class one time, and she's given me permission to share it with you guys, is her mom told her, don't ever show off, don't ever draw attention to yourself, don't draw attention to yourself. And so in my face-to-face classes, I go up and down the rows and I call on them constantly, just call them by name and say, what do you think, what do you think, what do you think? It's, I try to talk to them a lot. And so one day she came to me after class and she said, Amy, I need you never to call on me again. And I said, okay, why? And she said, because whenever you call on me, I blush so much that I feel so embarrassed because I turn red and I just feel like such a fool. And I said, oh, it makes you feel very uncomfortable when I call on you. I said, is that because, you feel like you don't know the answer or what? And she goes, no, my mom told me never to draw attention to myself. And so whenever attention is drawn on me, I start blushing and I start sweating and my heart starts pounding. And so again, that would be an example of how consciously she wished that she could talk in class and she did know the answers, but unconsciously her superego is saying, oh, don't draw attention to yourself, don't draw attention to yourself. So it's just something interesting to think about there of how your what a big of impact your parents have had on you.